This is If My People, Bible reading number 220. We're in the book of Hebrews. This is the single chapter that we can narrow it down to. We've got like 30 some odd other references throughout the writings of Paul and in the Old Covenant that relate directly to what I'm about to say. With this chapter has caused most people in Hebrew roots to divide and argue, and they cannot come up with a conclusion. Although what I'm about to read is just as clear as can be. And the Christian churches totally ignore chapter 7, all of chapter 7 that Paul wrote. And by the way, this comes from Yahweh through Yeshua to Paul to you. So I'm just going to read it, and it's not going to go through me. I'm not going to comment, interpret it more than what is given and what we've already read. Chapter 7, verse 1. Here we go. This Melchizedek. Now, most Bible commentaries mention, this is a comment, that it's mentioned 2 or 3 times in the Bible, and that's it. It's mentioned dozens of times. Dozens. Doesn't say the word Melchizedek. It defines the very definition of Melchizedek throughout the Bible. But it says Melchizedek 2 or 3 times. Okay, including this one, verse 7, verse 1, or chapter 7, verse 1. This Melchizedek was king of Salem and priest. That's what a Melchizedek is, Melchizedek, and priest of Elohim Most High. We're not saying that was Yeshua. Some may believe it was. I don't have a problem with either one. If that was, it certainly makes sense to me, because the evidence was that Yeshua and Yahweh, especially Yeshua, was visibly talking and with and sat with and was every day for 40 years with those in the Exodus, either speaking, talking, or in the form of a cloud. Every day. Never left them for 40 solid testing years. So here he was. He met Abraham returning from the defeat of the kings, and he blessed him. And Abraham gave him 1/10 of everything. First, his name means king of righteousness. Then also king of Salem means king of peace. What was the comment? 2 important things here. It redefines him again. Righteousness, king of peace, king of Salem, and priest and king, Melchizedek. And he gave him 1/10 of everything. What was 1/10 of everything? Churches and ministers claim that that's where your tithing comes in. 1/10 of whatever you have, I want it, or God wants it. We keep reading in the comment section. See if you can hear this. It's from the spoils of the battle. So 100% of everything that Abraham had, that he gave, Abraham had his own business running. He had tens of thousands of sheep and goats and all kinds of animals, and he had hundreds and hundreds of employees. He didn't give 1 penny of his income at all. He gave a tithing of the spoils of war, other people's money. Verse 3, without father, mother, without genealogy, without beginning of days or end of life, like the son of Elohim, he remains a priest forever. So it's a description of this Melchizedek. Is no matter what happens in life, he doesn't die. He's a priest forever. Who is that? That's Yeshua. That's who Yeshua represents. Now, if that's him or not, doesn't make a difference. Don't argue over it. It's just right there. Verse 4, just think how great he was. Even the patriarch Abraham gave him 1/10 of the plunder. There goes the tithing every week that you're supposed to give to the church's building. More buildings and running the business. Got to keep the secretaries and all the employees that we have in the businesses to run. My goodness. Now the law requires the descendants of Levi, that's in Torah and law, who become priests to collect a tenth from the people, that is, their brothers, even though their brothers are descended from Abraham. Comment. So what we're saying, just keep reading. Listen to our comments, though. Rightly divide, and if we don't make any sense, don't listen to what I'm saying here. But this is comments. The law doesn't require that with the coming of Yeshua. It's going to say that in chapter 7. Yeshua's come, so it doesn't make any sense because you see, Levite didn't even exist yet. Didn't even exist. He was still in the loins of Abraham somewhere. So if Abraham was paying tithes to Melchizedek, that means that Levi was paying tithes to Melchizedek in the Torah that we're told that we have to follow in the Old Covenant and still must do. It says that we pay our tithes to the Levites, not to Yahweh and not to Yeshua, so that they can live and they don't have to work. Just saying, it's right there. Verse 6, this man, however, did not trace his descent from Levi, yet he collected a tenth from Abraham and blessed him who had the promises. This man, who is this man? Melchizedek. Did not trace his line to, and that's true. He came from Judah. Yeshua. It's there. Verse 7, and without doubt the lesser person is blessed by the greater. So everybody's blessed by giving to Yeshua. Yeshua. In the one case, the tenth is collected by men who die, but in the other case by him is declared to be living. Who is the him? Psalm 104, or Psalm 10, verse 4. Yeshua. Because when Melchizedek met Abraham, Levi was still in the body of his ancestor. If perfection could have been obtained through Levitical priesthood, it was the basis of Torah was given to the people. Why was there still a need for another priest to come, one in the order of Melchizedek, not in the order of Aaron? That's a question. For when there is a change in the priesthood, there also must be a change in the Torah. A newer and better Torah. That's the 1,050 Torah commands we're giving you. That doesn't violate anything Paul is saying here. A number of the old Torah now does, because the living sacrifice is Yeshua. Verse 13, he of whom these things are said belonged to a different tribe, and no one from that tribe has ever served at the altar. Judah. For it is clear that our master descended from Judah, and in regard to that tribe, Moses said nothing about priests. And what we have said is even more clear if another priest like Melchizedek appears. Who's another priest like Melchizedek who did appear? Yeshua. There it is. One who has become a priest not on the basis of a regulation as to his ancestry, but on the basis of the power of indestructible life. Well, that limits everything, including Hasatan. He's destructible. The former regulation is set aside because it is weak and useless. That is the entirety of the old covenant. It's weak and useless. It must be rightfully divided. And if it violates new covenant, such as sacrificing blood and gore and guts, 200 some odd Torah regulations of the old covenant, we are not under that anymore. Verse 19, for the Torah made nothing perfect. Talking about the old covenant Torah. And a better hope, because Paul's saying this, that's where he got his source from old Torah. He was an expert in that. A better hope is introduced. Who's the better hope? Yeshua, by which we draw near to Elohim. how do we know it's Yeshua? That's how you get to Elohim. No one comes to the Father but by me. There's where Yeshua got that. And is without an oath. Catch that? And it was not, without an oath. The oath is you have to confess in Yeshua as your salvation to get to the Father. So there's a condition and there's an oath that you must make to the Father through Yeshua. Others become priests without an oath. But he became a priest with an oath when Yahweh said to him, Yahweh has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. And because of this oath, Yeshua has become the guarantee of a better covenant. Now, there have been many of those priests since death prevented them from continuing in office. But because Yeshua lives forever, he has a permanent priesthood. Therefore, he is able to save completely those who come to Elohim through him, because he always lives to intercede for them. Such a high priest meets our need, one who is kadosh, blameless, pure, set apart from sinners, exalted above the heavens, and unlike the other high priest, he does not need to offer sacrifices day after day after day. First for his own sins, and then for the sins of the people. He sacrificed for the sins once and for all when he offered himself. Wow. 28. For the Levitical law appoints as high priests men who were weak. Levitical law, Torah, Old Covenant. We are not under that anymore. Paul was absolutely correct. Christians don't have a clue what I'm talking to. Hebrew roots wants to argue and argue and argue forever on this. But the oath which came after the Levitical law appointed the Son who has been made perfect forever. Go back and read it without my comments. Just slowly read it. And a good number of Hebrew roots people have gotten hold of me and said, I see it, I see it, I see it, I see it, I see it. But it has been so hard in these Hebrew roots groups because they're so determined to argue and fuss. And most of them came from Christian churches. And they were right to leave those ding-dong institutions. And the Christians are mostly sheep. You can take 1,000,000 sheep and line them up and read them chapter 7. I mean, if Yeshua compares most Christians to sheep, and they belong to him and he loves them, we should love them. But do we expect them? Do we expect them to be able to read? Have you ever met a sheep in the field that can speak? They can only say one language. They only know one language, and it's one word. It's ba, eh. That's all you're going to get. So don't press them. Don't press them so hard. They're not going to get it. But if you talk to a sheep who thinks he's a sheep, and he starts questioning this, and he comes to you and he wants to listen to what the word says, because he hasn't been given that gift. He's been given other gifts from Yahweh. That is a shepherd. That is a shepherd. So I feel very comfortable with the average, what I'm averaging here, 1 out of 100. I get a thank you. 99 out of 100, I don't get anything, and probably somebody hates me because I've insulted their church. I've insulted their dogma. I've insulted their traditions of men. On the Hebrew roots, I don't wear tzitzis correct. I don't do them exactly right. I don't fold them and spin them and make them a certain way correct. I don't wear kippahs. I don't do any of that. Why? Because it's not in the Word. It's traditions of men. That's why I don't, and neither should you. This is huge. Hope to see you in reading 2:2:1. Shalom.